Today we will be learning how to create a javelin attack. Hello and welcome to how to create a Vampire Survivors clone in Godot 4. In this episode we're going to be creating the javelin, and it's pretty similar to Ice Spear and Tornado but also a little bit different. So we're just going to start by adding an area and then adding a collision shape. Just gonna change this area to be called Javelin. Just gonna be making sure that my spelling is correct. All good. Alright, and then we're gonna add a sprite. And our sprite is just going to be a javelin. We're gonna do javelin new rather than javelin attack. We will use javelin attack later, and you'll see, like the Ice Spear, it's rotated to a different size. So gonna do a rectangle. I'm gonna just move this in front so our collision box is in front in the ordering, and I'm gonna set the rotation to -45 and just grow it so that it has, so that it just kind of fits, and that is good. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna disable this because I don't want the collision box to initially be working. And then we are going to be adding free timers to our javelin. That's right, free. And they're all going to do something just a little bit different. So the first one we're going to call attack timer. And this is going to be what actually launches the javelin. The second one is going to be change direction, which is going to effectively just give the javelin a new target. And then we're going to have another one called reset pause timer, which is going to be where the javelin goes to, well, it's just going to be a timer that sets the javelin, where the javelin kind of rests at. So then we're just going to add an audio stream player 2D because we do want positional sound, and just going to make that sound attack. And I'm also going to be making this access as unique path for the timers. And we're just going to do a Control S to save, go to player, attacks, and save the javelin right there. And then we're just going to add a new script. So just like the other attacks, we're going to have to add a lot of variables. So we've got our level, so var level equals 1, var HP. We're not going to want the javelin to despawn, so I'm just going to set HP to 99999, not like it really matters. Speed equals 200.0, so I want this to be quite a quick attack. We're going to make the damage equal to 10. We're going to make the var knockback amount equal to 100. We're going to set our paths, and this is going to be a unique one for the javelin. This is going to be the amount of kind of attacks it does when it's in attack mode. And then we're going to have the attack size equal 1.0, var attack speed, which is also unique to javelin, and this is because it's going to be a permanent thing out on the field rather than a spawned attack. So then we're going to get a target, which is going to be vector2.0, and then we're going to have an array for the target. So target array equals an empty array. We're going to get our angle, which is going to be number one, another vector2.0. Our reset position, which is going to be another vector2.0. We're also going to be referencing the two sprites here. So var spr jav reg is going to be a preloaded version of our regular sprite, which is going to be free_new. And then var spr jav attack is going to equal preload, and this is going to be our new attack. So we're going to be swapping between these sprites when we do attack. And after this, we have to do a bunch of onReady variables. So onReady var player is going to equal our get tree dot get first node in group player onReady var, and I'm just going to copy and paste this so it's just a little bit quicker for the next one. Sprite equals sprite 2D. The collision is going to equal collision 2D. Our attack timer is going to equal get get node and attack timer. Change timer, just gonna correct that capital I there. Change direction timer. It's gonna equal get node, get underscore node, and we're just gonna make it change direction. Do the same thing with the reset pos timer. Once again, get node, reset pos timer. And then finally, we're just gonna get the sound for the attack. So sound attack equals sound attack. Okay, that was a lot. Oh, also we need to do our signal for our remove from array the object for our hurt box hit once condition. And finally, we can get down to actual coding. So when this spawns, we're actually going to be placing everything into a player-made function called update javelin, because we want to set ourselves up in the future to be able to update the stats of the javelin. So, you know, ready, we just do update javelin, and then we create the function update javelin. And this is going to be pretty much everything we set in our javelin. So the level is going to equal player dot javelin level, which reminds me we should go into the player before we do anything else and spawn the javelin. So instead of having these two timers here, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding a 2D node into our attacks, and we're going to call this javelin base. And our javelins are going to permanently be a child of this javelin base. So we'll go to javelin, well, we'll go to the player, and we have to add some new variables. So javelin equals preload, and we'll just add in the javelin scene here. All pretty easy. We'll have a onReady var javelin base equals, and I'm just gonna make this access as a unique node, get node javelin base. And then we're gonna have to add a couple more variables for our javelin. Sorry, there's a lot of variables in this episode. And then we're gonna be making the javelin the javelin ammo is going to equal 1, and we're not going to be doing base ammo. Instead, we're going to just do javelin ammo and javelin level equals 1. I'm also going to just make tornado level equals 0 for the moment and just reset the base ammo to 1, so it's back in the standard. So now that we have done all this, we need to spawn our javelin. So we're going to be doing this in the attack function, which is ran at the start. And we're just going to be saying if javelin level is greater than 0, we're going to be calling a function called spawn javelin. And what this is going to be doing is I'm going to be running this underneath our tornado timers and the such. Function spawn javelin. So let's just go down to there. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting our javelin total. So get javelin total equals javelin base dot get child count. So that's any child of the javelin base. We're then going to do a var count spawns, and this is going to equal the javelin ammo minus the get javelin total. And then we're going to have a while loop. So while calc spawns is greater than 0, we're going to spawn the javelin. So javelin spawn equals javelin dot instantiate. We're going to set the global position, so javelin spawn dot global position equals global position. We're again going to do a javelin base dot add child javelin spawn, and then we're going to just set the calc spawns negative equals 1, and that is everything we need to do within our player. So now we are going to be spawning these, but we need to go back into our javelin. So we're just going to find it there, go back into our javelin, and now we're going to be adding all the code that we need. So first of all, we're just going to match our level. So match level 1, and we're just going to effectively be doing the same thing here. So HP equals 9999, speed equals 200, damage equals 10, knockback amount equals 100, halves equals 1, attack size equals 1.0, and the attack speed equals 4.0. And then we're just going to be setting the scale. So scale equals vector 2 1.0 1.0 times the attack size. Going to add some separation there, and then we're going to be making the attack timer dot wait time equal the attack speed. And that's it for our update javelin function. So now we need to go into our physics process. And we're just going to be saying if our target array, which is this array right here, dot size is greater than 0, we're just going to be doing our position plus equals angle times speed times delta. Now we need to fill this target array somehow, and that's what we're going to be doing next. So in our attack timer, so for starters, I'm just going to make this a one-shot auto start and default this to 4 seconds, and then I'm just going to connect the timeout function. And what this is going to do is we're going to call a function called add paths. And what add paths is going to do, function add paths. So what add paths is going to do is, number one, we're going to be playing our sound. So play. I may as well just add the whoosh sound to it. So it's called whoosh. I'm going to go into my sound attack, drag it here, and when we play, it just plays a nice whoosh sound, and that's it for our attack sound right there. Anyway, we're then going to just emit our signal, remove from array self for our hurt box, because this is going to be signifying an attack, and I want my javelin to hit the same enemy multiple times if it can. And before we do anything with the target array, we're just going to clear it. And now we can actually do something. So we're going to have a var counter equals 0. And while our counter is greater than our, our counter is less than our paths, which is this variable right here. Yep, so while that is the case, we're going to do a var new path equals player, which is our player, dot get random target. And this is the same argument we use, well, this is the same function we use to get our ice spear. It's just that we're calling it in the javelin. Then we're going to do a target array dot append new path. And then we're going to set the counter to plus equals 1. And outside of the while loop, we're just going to make the target equal the target array 0. All pretty simple stuff. And then we're going to be calling a new function called process path. Process path. So we're just going to create that right there. Process path. Now what process path is going to do, for the moment, we're just going to set the angle to equal the global position dot direction to target. So this is how we set the angle of our javelin. We're also going to be starting the change direction timer here as well. So the defaults of the change direction timer, we're just going to make this exactly the same. And now we're going to have to connect the timeout again. All right, so now what is the change direction timer going to do? Well, number one, we're going to be checking if our target array dot size is greater than 0. And if it is, we're going to just remove the first instance of it. So remove at 0. So effectively, we're going to be choosing the next target in line afterwards, and we're going to do this by checking if the target array.size is still greater than 0, and if it is, we'll set our target to the new target array 0. Then we're going to call process paths again. We're also going to play the sound of the attack again because it's choosing a new place to attack. Dot play. And then we are going to emit the signal once again just to reconfirm that hey, Javelin, if you hit an enemy with the hit once hurt box, you're allowed to hit it again. So that's what we're going to be doing with this array. Now, else, I'm going to be creating a new signal called enable attack. And we're just going to set this to false. And I'll get to making enable attack very shortly, but we're just going to do change direction timer. So we're just going to stop this timer now if we ran out of targets to strike. We're then going to set the attack timer to start again. And we're also going to be just setting the enable attack to false. Now, what enable attack is going to do is enable the attack. So function enable attack, and we're just going to have the argument attack equals true. So by default, the enable attack is going to be true. And if attack is true, we're just going to do it short form. We're going to enable the collision to ever call the third process, of course, because otherwise there's bugs. And we're just going to set our disabled to false. And else, we're going to set our collision.call deferred to the disabled to true. And that should all work. I'm also going to be setting our sprite. So the sprite.texture is going to equal SPR jav attack. So it's going to swap sprites with if I type in Javelin, it's gonna swap op sprites with a slightly more bluer attack to signify that it's in attack mode, and if it's just in like kind of safe mode, I'm just gonna make the sprite dot texture equals sprite jav. Now the other thing we need to do with this is actually enable it in our script here. So enable attack equal true in our add paths just around there, and this should actually be enough to start. We're not going to be doing reset pause timer soon, but we're just going to play this just to show what the attack is going to be doing. And oh, I have failed. So attack timer. So the attack timer, oh, there we go. I didn't end up fixing that. Fantastic. So now let's try that again. Oh, and it's stuck to us. So we need to go into our visibility and set as top level. So now this is going to hopefully strike something. Oh, it's strike there. I have this random self-modulate stuck. There we go. That's a bit better. And we can see that it's not working very well. Have I screwed up? If attack set called the third false, otherwise set to true. Oh, I know what I've done. I also need to set our collision to free, to layer free for our enemy, and I also need to place this into the attack group because this is prerequisites for our hurt box. So now, hopefully, this will, when this strikes, it will attempt to strike an enemy. See how it walks past, but now when it activates, it starts to attack. Also, if I increase the paths to like, let's do 3, hopefully this should attack multiple areas. Oh yeah, that's right. I need to do this within the level because we redefine it. Alright, hopefully this is the last time I have to run this before we move on to the next part of coding the Javelin. You can see how that kind of worked. It just went into a straight line, but the more options there are, the more likely it's going to like zigzag. So you can kind of see it there. Alright, so what is the next path? Well, we're going to have to do something in regards to it resetting and it facing our player. So the first things we're going to do is I would like it to kind of face our player. So I'm going to be doing a big else if the array size is 0, and we're going to be making so we get a variable on the player angle. So this is going to be a angle between the javelin and the player. So global position dot direction to reset pos. So we'll talk about reset pos later. We will be setting this to something, but imagine this being just the player's global position plus a little bit different. So then we got var distance underscore diff, and this is going to be global position minus player dot global position, and this is just going to get the distance between the player and the javelin. We're going to have our return speed set to 20. However, and if the distance, and so we're going to have if distance diff dot y, and we're going to have ABS, which is absolute, and that just means if we have a negative value, we're going to turn it into a positive value. So we can check if it's going to be greater than 500, or ABS distance diff dot x. I just realized, yeah, I'm just going to make this x and a y is greater than 500. So if these are greater than 500, then we're just going to set the return speed to be 100. And from that, we're going to make the position plus equals player angle times return speed. So if it's further away, it's going to return to us a bit quicker, times delta. And then we're also going to be doing the rotation. So we want the javelin to rotate towards us. So rotation equals global position dot direction to player dot global position dot angle. And then because it is facing, oh, I think I screwed up there. Yep. So we need to get the angle of this entire thing. And then because it is facing negative 45 degrees away from us, we're going to do a deg to rad 135. So it ends up, so it defaults to a vector 2 dot right, which is actually 0 radians. It just allows the math to work. So the next thing we need to do is change our reset pos timer. So this is just going to be an independent thing to allow the javelin to float towards a specific point. So I'm going to set this to a wait time 3 seconds, auto start, and we're going to create this timeout. And all this is going to be doing is choosing one of 4 directions. So choose direction equals rad I, which is random integer. And we're going to be making this, giving us 4 options. So 0, 1, 2, or 3. We're going to be setting our reset position to equal the player dot global position. And then we're going to match whatever the choose direction was. So if it was 0, we're going to go into the reset pos and we're going to dot x and we're going to plus equals 50. And this is really all it does. It's going to create a random point around the player and just based on a random chance. So it should kind of like surround the player. And we're just going to be making it in 4 different areas. You can do more if you want. Y minus, and that's it. And it's an auto start. So now, I believe this is actually all we need to do for our javelin. So, oh, wait, I know that I have forgotten something. And yes, I have. So I'll just play this for a tiny bit. So we can see that it's kind of like supporting us. But you can see that the angle when it strikes is a bit weird. So we are going to fix that. So now we're just going to be creating a tween. So var tween in our process path function equals create tween. And we're going to be getting a var new rotation degrees is going to equal our angle dot angle. So getting it in the correct format, which is radians, plus degrees to rad 135. So this is going to be in radians, which is what the angle really does. And then we're going to just tween the property. So tween dot tween property self rotation. And we're going to be setting it so that it rotates towards the new rotation degrees in 0.25 seconds. And then we're just going to be doing the set trans, and we're going to be setting this to trans quint. And then we're going to be doing a set ease, and we're going to be doing ease out. Afterwards, we just have to do a tween dot play. And we should have a tween that kind of just floats. Oh. Tween.play, not player. There we go. Let's see if that doesn't crash for us anymore. So we can now see that it points towards where it wants to strike after a small animation. Now, if we wanted to just change it to one path, we could change it here from 3 to 1 paths. As you can see, it strikes 3 times, and we can always have multiple spears up at once. So let's say I want to change this to 3 spears in total, or 3 javelins in total. You'll see that it's all kind of separating, and they're just causing huge amounts of chaos. So that is the javelin. There's going to be a lot of explanation in theory time if you didn't quite get why it works, so I'll meet you there. Just a post-production edit. I would also like my javelins to be moving at the start, so I'm just going to copy and paste the function for the reset pause timer into the ready function, so the javelins begin moving at the beginning of the game. On the player's ready function, we call the attack function, which will check if the javelin level is greater than 0. If it is, we call the spawn javelin function. In the spawn javelin function, we subtract the amount of javelins we want by the number of javelins that we have, and then run a loop for every number that remains where we spawn a javelin on the javelin base. In the ready function of the javelin, we set our javelin stats as well as the reset position variable with the timeout function. The reset position is set by choosing a random position 50 pixels near the player. This occurs at the very beginning of the javelin being spawned and every 3 seconds afterwards. In order for our javelin to attack, we need to set our target and get targets within our target array. This will occur every 4 seconds within the attack timer, which will be called using the add paths function. The function will first play an attack sound, then remove itself from any hit once a hurt box, and clear the array used to store the targets. Afterwards, we add a target for every path that we want to add. This is retrieved with the player's getRandomTarget function, which is going to get a random target near the player. We then append that value to an array and then close the loop. The enableAttack function, which should be outside of the while loop, which we will do right now, will set the collision shape to not be disabled and will change the sprite to indicate that it's in attack mode. Afterwards, we call the processPath function. The processPath function will get the angle between the javelin's global position and the target. It will then start the change direction timer and use a tween to rotate towards the target it is trying to attack. The angle is used within the physics process to direct the javelin towards the target if there is any target to attack. If there isn't, we instead get the javelin to float back to the player by getting the angle between the javelin and the player and then change the position with that instead. We also return with a different speed based on how far away the javelin is. This is just trying to make sure that the player is unable to outrun the javelin as easily. At the moment, if the javelin is greater than 500 pixels away from the player, it will return 5 times faster than if it wasn't. The javelin will also be rotating towards the player during this time. Now to swap the target, the change direction timer that was started in the processPath function is called every second, and it checks if the target array has a value. It then removes the first target from the array and checks if it still has a value. If it does, we set the target to the first value in the array and call the processPath function to continue the attack. We also play the attack sound and clear the javelin from any hit once hurt box. If the target array doesn't have a value, we call the enableAttack function with a false argument to disable the attack. We also stop the change direction timer and start the attack timer to begin the process over again. I'm going to add the timer calls in the inward target array check because at the moment all we are doing is having to run the change direction timeout function again to begin the attack timer process. As a result, I'll increase the attack timer timeout by 1 second, so we get the same result. I'm going to leave the outer else function invo, even though it won't be ran, just as a fail-safe if we ever make changes in the future.
Here you see the essential problem for the swordsman. He cannot reach his opponent. He can weave about and parry with his sword to keep himself safe, but the only way he can win the fight is to close with his foe. Once up close, he should beat the spearman. But look how fast the head of the spear is.